Rock and roll was the folk music of America.
Right.
Folk music is the music of the folk. It's not meant to be static and one thing all the time. It's supposed to relate the feelings of the people, and the feelings of the people at that point were rock and roll.
Hey everybody, this is Kurt Neumann from the BoDeans, and I'm doing a podcast called Staring at the World. So wherever you get your podcast, you can search for Staring at the World, and we're going to be talking about basically what I call the creative element in all different industries, whatever people do. Creativity is at the core of what you do each day, and that's what we're going to talk about. So look for Staring at the World.
What I did with the police is I figured, look, all the criteria that makes a record company want to sign an act did not exist. There was no press, there was no following.
Right.
There was really nothing to recommend the group except the music. So I went to A&M Records and I said, look, I know very well that if I ask for a lot of money, they're going to say no, because it's easier to say no when there's a bit of risk involved. So I said, look, here's the deal. It's free. The record's yours.
Right.
You've already signed it. Now just listen to the music. What do you got to lose? And the A&R guy listened and he thought, well, gee, I mean, my budget's not going to be affected. My career's not going to be affected. If it fails, who cares? Yeah, let me listen to the music. And I'll bet you this is the only time he ever really listened to the music. And he liked it.
Yeah.
So A&M signed the group. And I did the same thing when I went to Jerry Moss to make IRS Records. I said, look, I can't recommend this music. I mean, it's not particularly happening on the radio here in America. Everybody sort of thinks punk rock world is a joke. But I think a lot of this stuff has a value. So here's the deal. I don't need your money. Give me no money. Just have your salespeople press up what they think they can sell. So there's no risk. Just give me a label and distribute it. And he said, well, what the hell? So he said yes. And that's how I started IRS. So in other words, I made the yes easy.
Right.
I made the deal affordable. And that's part of the lesson of my life, really, is that if you make the answer yes easy, you're likely to get yes as an answer.
Right.
If you make the answer no easy, you're likely to get no as an answer. So I figured, well, I need yes as an answer, and I'm going to make it easy. So I'll say, look, it's for free or for very cheap. Make it very enticing, and you're likely to get a yes. And that's basically how I got going with the police and IRS Records.
What we do here, what this podcast is kind of is about what I call the creative element. And for me, I wasn't a good kid in school or anything like that, but I was good at being creative and learning workarounds to any kind of obstacle that was in my way. I would find some kind of workaround. And so can you tell me a little bit about your childhood? Because I was wondering what it was like for you as a kid where you grew up, if it was a similar situation as mine.
Well, I lived in East London, and it was, at the time, it was normal life. But if you look back on it, it was kind of a bit of a rough area. 10:30 at night, everyone was in bed because the wrong kind of people were out on the streets. So it was that kind of thing. We never had any money. We also didn't have social platforms to tell us how inadequate our life was. So you just knew the people that you messed with in the street, and you knew the people you did not. It was that kind of neighborhood. You stood your ground, you kept your word for your word. And I grew up curious. And I think that became my beautiful trait that got me to where I am now. I was always curious because, as you said, to find out the other way. There's a front door to get in a house, but there's also a side door, the chimney, the windows. There's multiple ways to get into something. Right. Doesn't mean I break into houses, but entrepreneurs look for a way around. And using your terminology, which is beautiful, we creatively disrupt things. So as a curious kid, I was always kind of like, well, how come you've got a nice job and I haven't? How come you've got a big house and I haven't? And it sounds very disgruntled. And when I was younger, I think maybe there was a little bit of a disgruntlement in me. But as I got older, that festered into massive curiosity. And now I have literally had conversations with the Pope, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Jean-Paul Dujurius, some of the most powerful people. And I name those that you've heard of, but some that are even richer that you've never heard of before. And I've asked them questions like, what makes you different? How do you think? And if I've got to kind of like set them up with a piano lesson with Elton John just to be able to grab their attention for half an hour to ask that question, then that's what I did. I wanted to know how they managed to do stuff that other people don't think is possible. So it was that curiosity. And my wife says, I'm a 55-year-old, 5-year-old, forever curious.
Right. And I've told my kids the very same thing. Stay a kid as long as you can. There's a certain magical energy.
Perfect.
I've said when you stop believing in that magic, that's when there is no more magic. Because you got to have a belief in it for it to be there.
But this was the beginning of me understanding, holy shit, it's not about me, it's about we. It's about me serving the song, serving the music, serving the artist, serving the band, serving the producer, serving everybody. It's like not about me, it's about what can I do to get this song on the radio to be a #1 hit. That was the lesson. And thank God I didn't go home, because when John told me, you're not playing on the record, and you know, I'll pay for the week, but you go home. And I went, no fucking way. I mean, I'm not going. And the reason why is because I didn't know it at the time, but I look back and go, oh man, he was trying to take away my bliss, my purpose, everything I ever wanted to do. And I was done. I figured this is it, man. And so I was negotiating a deal that I thought would serve us both, which was, all right, first thing I go is like, listen, I mean, I got into that fight mode. It's like, hey, am I still your drummer or what? And he's all perplexed, and he goes, well, yeah, but you're not playing on the record. And went, well, and I'm fumbling for words. I'm going, well, I'm going to go and watch these other drummers play, and I'll learn from them, and I'll get better, and I'll benefit from that, and you'll benefit because I'm your drummer.
Yeah.
And then he didn't say anything, and I'm like, shit. Like, all right, you don't have to pay me, and I'll sleep on the couch. And he went,
yeah,
okay.
Say that to John. He's like, okay,
perfect.
very good.
You know? Oh, it was horrible. I mean, for 4 weeks I stuck around, but I did learn a lot, took notes, and then I went home and went, all right, now I have to figure out how to be the best Johnny Cougar drummer I can be, which meant forget about Billy Cobham. Now it was Charlie Watts and the Stones, Doug Clifford with Creedence Clearwater. What's his name? Phil Rudd from AC/DC. In some cases, John Bonham. Anybody that was playing drums to serve the song. Ringo Starr with the Beatles. You know, it just was being the drummer that has the right feel, the right tones, the right parts. And that was the beginning of me understanding what a drummer does in a band.
With the writer, Henry Edwards was writing the biographies of all the photographers. And for some reason, he took a liking to me and my pictures. And at the end of my interview, he said, I'm going to interview John and Yoko next week. Would you like to come and take pictures for that? And I was extremely excited. I mean, John and Yoko had come to New York in the summer, and there were news reports that they were around town. Within a couple of weeks or months, we found out they actually lived around the corner from me in Greenwich Village, literally half a block away. But, you know, you don't go and stand outside that house and try to bother them or anything, although, you know, some people wanted to. But of course, I was hoping to meet John and Yoko. I saw them one time when they played at a benefit, the Apollo Theater. It was the first time I saw them. And I spoke to John a moment. I mean, they were waiting for their ride backstage. And people had those little Instamatic cameras, and they were taking some snapshots. And John kind of said, you know, people are always taking our picture. We never see these pictures. Whatever happens to these pictures? And I spoke up. I said, well, I live around the corner from you. I'll show you my pictures. And he said, oh, you live around the corner? Well, slip them under the door, you know. And it sounded very neighborly. So I didn't slip them under the door. I rang the bell. But much to my surprise, Jerry Rubin answered the door. Right. He happened to be visiting, and he opened the door for them. But he said, are they expecting you? And I said, no, I'm just leaving this for them. And I left. I gave them the pictures. I left. And Yoko remembered that, because almost nobody just came and gave them something without trying to meet them. And she was like, well, who's that guy? Because they liked my pictures and they hadn't met me. And it wasn't until a few months later, when Henry brought me to the interview, that it was really more one-on-one with John and Yoko. And I took some pictures and they liked the pictures I took that night. They were recording with the Elvis Memory Band. And the story that Henry and I were working on was actually about the band. It wasn't about John and Yoko. So I asked if I could come to the studio to take pictures of them together. And they said, okay. And then they liked the pictures that I did that night. And they used one of them inside the cover of the Sometime in New York City album. And at that point, they told me to come around more often and to take pictures whenever I wanted, and that they would give me total access.
Yeah.
And
That's amazing.
and that's worked. I'm still friends with Yoko today.
I hope you can subscribe to this and give us a thumbs up review and share it and do whatever you can to spread it around, because we need, people like you to listen, or I'm just in a room talking to nobody. So please join us, and thank you.